Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 19 of the FusionCast. Full disclosure, I had to stop and check that because once again, I forgot. I know I claimed during the last episode that I had this problem worked out. I clearly do not. So I will continue to try to improve on memorizing what episode we're on. So joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Pete Bry, coming to us from a secure, non-disclosed location in the lovely north or southwest of the U.S. And also a special guest today, Brent Compton. Brent is joining us. He's been on the podcast before, but for the first time as an official IBM employee, now that the Red Hat Data Services team, Brent's group, has kind of migrated over to the land of Big Blue and has officially joined us as of January 1st. So we are psyched to have him and his team here. Thought it'd be cool to kind of fire some questions at him and, provide a little immersion therapy into all things IBM. So Brent, thanks for joining us.
Do I get a ticket to Pete's location out of this, Randy?
I think we should all get a ticket to Pete's location. So? We should definitely do a remote. I think we need to set up a remote from that location. So I don't know. So again, I think most people who are watching this probably have already heard from Brent, or Brent's been kind of making the rounds of some of the forums and the regularly scheduled events, kind of introducing himself and his team. So this is kind of yet another one. I'll just say before I ask Brent to introduce himself, we are ecstatic to have Brent and his team on board. They bring just a level of expertise and professionalism and domain knowledge and market awareness that we really, really are psyched to have. So we're pretty thrilled about that. And I think it makes it's a great story as we look at where we are now and where we're going in the future and the combined might of IBM and Red Hat. So I don't know, Brent, I'm going to turn it over to you. Take a couple minutes, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about what you're doing.
I'm Brent Compton. Thank you, Randy. I'm Brent Compton. I ran the Red Hat storage business, so that comprised both Red Hat self-storage as well as Red Hat OpenShift Data Foundation. I was responsible for that business at Red Hat. So now me and several hundred of my closest friends from Red Hat became IBM employees on January 1st. One of the things, and at IBM, I continue with responsibilities, product management executive for both Ceph, continued with Ceph, and working with IBM in the data and AI pillar with Ceph. So Ceph and Scale serving as the foundation for IBM's data and AI pillar. So our team's working with Matt Geiser and the Scale and Global Data Platform team for that. Likewise, I have joint responsibilities with Scott Redfern for Fusion as ODF becomes effectively the default data foundation for Fusion. So that's a little bit about what responsibilities that I had prior to January 1st and responsibilities I have now. One other thing that I might like to say is we are a unique group of several hundred people in that because we continue to produce OpenShift Data Foundation for inclusion in Red Hat OpenShift Platform Plus, and because we continue to produce Red Hat Ceph Storage, which is sold with Red Hat OpenStack platform. So effectively, Red Hat does, best way you can think about it informally is it's an intra-company OEM of those things. So we retain access. We effectively, in some respects, we have dual citizenship. Red Hat continued access to Red Hat systems, as well as we are officially IBM employees, so of course have access to IBM systems. So that gives us as we were talking actually in the warm-up before the call, Randy, you mentioned about this is kind of the next step in the journey that IBM and Red Hat are taking to create value together. That gives us somewhat of a unique view in trying to create value for both companies with a common set of technologies.
Yeah, that's and I firmly believe that. I think we saw, say, shortly after the acquisition with Cloud Paks and the kind of convergence of the software stack from IBM with OpenShift as the foundation for delivery, This to me is the next logical step in the evolution, and it makes complete sense because now we can take, all of these deployed OpenShift clusters and applications and build, the foundation underneath them to support them at scale. So as organizations look to evolve from kind of their initial implementation to a broader, high performance global, production scale, Fusion is the perfect accelerator for that. So I think it's a really cool kind of, you use the word journey. I think that's an apt way to describe it. It really is a journey, and we're stoked to have you guys on board. And it's been like 30 days ish, right, or a little over, and you haven't run screaming into the woods yet. So that's a win. I think that's good. I think that bodes well for the future. So Pete, over to you. You look like you have a question.
Yeah. And, listening to you, Brent, and I'm not surprised that you brought up Ceph, because clearly it's one of the crown jewels, that we've brought over with this transition. And, as I think about it, and we both, work together at Red Hat, both around Ceph and ODF, as well as some of the other offerings. And as I think about it more, and I'd love you to talk more too about your experience in terms of seeing where the market opportunities are, particularly as it relates to, I like to think that what we've learned from a competitive standpoint about ODF is that we have the right architecture in place. And what I mean by that is, we can not only support the customers and the clients that we have today, but we can support them in the future too, as they need to scale. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about how does Ceph play in that story too, because we do have some unique features that we can expose through ODF, but also natively through Ceph. As you mentioned, the data and AI, sales play also. So talk a little bit about your experience and even what you've learned in the first 30 days about the unique opportunity we have.
I'll probably tee off of your comment, Pete, about data and AI is to bridge those two things together.
Yeah.
So for OpenShift, for Red Hat OpenShift, of course, Red Hat has been focused on two primary market segments. One, of course, is the application development and deployment platform. So that's, everybody knows that. But likewise, most people also know that the other use case is, so in addition to the classic application development and deployment platform, what some people call data engineering, data science, analytics, but there it's less construction of classic applications, but it's more assembling and integrating data pipelines from various ingest forms through various transformations and analytics and model training and finally inferencing. So typically a series of I'll just be casual here and say Python code connecting a bunch of these things together in a pipeline. And so that's the modern world of data and AI is comprised of those. Maybe they're not traditional application developers. So what do you call them? Some people call them data engineers. Some people call them data scientists. But they're people who construct those pipelines. So so Red Hat with OpenShift is focused on those two market segments heavily. In fact, you probably, I know you personally do, Pete, and Randy, you as well. But our listeners may have followed Red Hat OpenShift data science as an example. And there's some recent news around Red Hat OpenShift data science, and that's just indicative of how large the market opportunity is. And again, it's reflected by Red Hat's messaging and whatnot for both of these segments: application development and deployment, and data engineering, data science, data pipelining. Both of those two things. Okay, so with that as the context, any form of data and AI, as it comes into Kubernetes environment, Kubernetes native environments such as OpenShift, by definition, it's data intensive. I mean, that's why data is in its name, obviously. And so, as you were alluding to, Pete, the ability to scale and the ability to perform at scale, and most importantly, the ability to perform predictably at scale. Those are critical things, and particularly in that data and AI space. That's where the team has been met with pleasant surprise as we look at OpenShift through Fusion. IBM Storage Fusion can have two different types of external effectively scale out clusters. One is based on IBM Storage Scale, and the other flavor can be based, of course, on IBM Storage Ceph. The combination of those two things with IBM Storage Scale, as they're a massive segment of the market who come from high performance computing to the AI/ML space, and then from Ceph, where a lot of people who have effectively cut their teeth in the cloud native world, cloud native analytics, and are S3 compatible object storage, RESTful protocols all the way. The combination of those two assets as external mode clusters to IBM Storage Fusion, as far as I can see, is unparalleled in the market for helping OpenShift and Cloud Pak for Data customers make more rapid progress in their data and AI objectives.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, the way I vehemently agree, and one of the ways I often describe it when talking to customers, and I had an executive briefing right before this with a very large global financial institution. And the way I kind of described it was bringing Red Hat and IBM together. If you think about the full stack from, data residing on media somewhere, wherever that may be, and you have an edge or an end user workload or access point, could be a mobile device, could be an ATM, could be your home laptop, whatever, could be your refrigerator, sensor device of some kind. Nobody in the industry has integrated that full stack except IBM and Red Hat. So IBM's been living, in the infrastructure layer for, over 100 years and have built a very solid foundation as being, deeply proficient in infrastructure engineering and performance and management and optimization and operational, efficiencies. And Red Hat was built on solving the top of that, like the user access, developing those applications and workloads efficiently, repeatably, and delivering them more rapidly, leveraging automation and, all the things that OpenShift is really good at. And subsequently with things like Ansible and, the other parts of Red Hat. So when you bring those things together and they kind of meet in the middle, that's a really, really compelling story. And nobody else can tell the story. The closest that you'll hear, I think, is, the hyperscalers have obviously full stack solutions, but they don't really have the on-prem elements or components, and they don't really have the ability to achieve that frictionless growth from pilot to production. The ability to go from a pilot project to a global scale, full-on production workload. So it's really differentiated set of capabilities. And Brent, you're kind of seeing it. It's cool to see your perspective because you're kind of seeing it relatively new or through a new eyes, and bringing those things together. It really is a huge opportunity for us. And that's a big part of the reason why we're so excited about it. And I'll shut up and turn it over to Pete.
So, quick follow on, Brent, actually, to what we were talking about earlier about, the architecture and how that's really important. In your experience, and I know you've had the opportunity to work with a lot of customers around the world deploying, Kubernetes, and obviously OpenShift technology is the preferred Kubernetes technology right now. But, what have you learned in those experiences, particularly as it relates to, architectural conversations and scale and automation? Are there other things in addition to those things, but even, speaking with respect to automation and scale, what have you learned in working with those customers?
What's top of mind right now for me is customers, just as usual, it's last in, first out. So that the most recent set of conversations that I've been having are reflecting people moving from, I'm not going to say from lab to production because they're already in production. It's more people moving to scale out dramatically production. So they had more, so they've already moved. Some of the recent customers that I'm referring to here, they've already moved from pilot to production. They've done that years ago, but now it's an expansion. It's that, that first round of production deployments has been successful. And now, as you mentioned, automation and whatnot. So just on a call earlier this week, someone said, okay, how do they go from, I can't remember what it was, 20-ish. Anyway, it was in sub 50 OpenShift clusters to nearly 1,000.
Wow.
Okay. So that takes automation and every point of friction that exists, friction in deployment, friction in support, friction in integration, every point of friction that exists in one cluster. Okay, one cluster, you deal with it. Maybe you can deal with it with 10 clusters. But imagine what the cost of that friction is with 800 clusters. So that's what's been on my mind, and that's where I've seen it. And in fact, in one of those cases, IBM Storage Fusion was used for that express purpose, as to say, I've got to remove risk. I've got to have I can't be, for hundreds of these clusters, I can't be going to this vendor for supporting this piece of the OpenShift infrastructure, go to this vendor to support this piece of my OpenShift infrastructure and whatnot. So that's what's on my mind right now is helping customers, like I say, long since gone from kicking the tires. It's not only that, it's scaling out, it's broadening production usage. But then the second thing that comes with that is all the traditional application resiliency, disaster recovery, data protection, and data HA.
The table stakes.
Exactly. All of those things are okay. Maybe they got a hall pass for a while, but man, those things are top of mind as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question that we hear a lot though is like, why can't I just use my traditional storage? Why, we've got CSI out there, and you talk about, scaling to hundreds, if not thousands of clusters. I mean, what happens if you try to use, old traditional approaches, to solving some of these problems? I mean, have you had any experience working with customers who have tried to do that, or even through your own, experience working with these solutions, what problems come up and why not? Why can't you do that?
A couple of things. The first is, okay, so your existing, so a customer's existing storage. I mean, of course, it's understand where they're coming from. They're looking to leverage existing asset and expertise. But okay, so most of that's going to be probably expressed through some form of CSI driver on top of NFS, right. Something like that. Okay, cool. Yeah. So the first question I ask is, okay, do you happen to have any cloud native apps on-prem that require S3 compatible object storage? Yeah. Well, does your CSI on top of NFS solution provide S3 compatible at scale object storage?
Right.
And then some of the use cases likewise require, so in the RWO category, require raw block volumes. So it's that's the question that I see. It's effectively the tension between the usual thing, I got to have this yesterday. I'm just going to use with what I have, and great, what I have may fulfill some of the use cases. But then, as they go down the path, it's like, wow, wouldn't it be nice if I had a single OpenShift data foundation providing all-in-one storage classes? So, yep, I've got a growing number of applications that require a RESTful S3 compatible storage class. Well, got that. Got a growing number that require shared distributed file systems. Well, yep, got that. Likewise, that need RWO and in some cases raw block volumes. Yep, got that. So very, very few of the data foundations out there provide it all in one. In fact, how many do? provide all-in-one. Some provide a couple, and then they partner, have kind of a some form of partnership with somebody else. But how many do?
Right. And I really think that's one of the big differences about, what we deliver with Fusion and Ceph together is it's a comprehensive application data services solution. It's not, little bits and pieces here and there.
Well, yeah, and I think you also a little bit more abstract, but you also really get sort of the best of both worlds in the sense that you still have access to as many different open source or commercial software products or solutions as you want, because OpenShift and by extension Fusion are open standards based. So anything that runs on Kubernetes, anything that's S3 compliant, anything that fits those very broad, well-documented standards criteria will run, and that's totally cool. But you also don't have to then, Brent, to your earlier point, chase down support from 50 different vendors, or even worse, go post a message on Reddit because your open source framework just died, and you got to figure out a way to get it fixed and hope that somebody can bail you out. So, as enterprises are making that journey and evolving beyond the kind of a science project phase and really rolling into a hardened production workload, all of those table stakes requirements, those core data services, resilience, placement, backup, recovery, encryption, availability, DR, all that stuff is no longer, to your point, they don't have the hall pass anymore. Those are not nice to have. Those are required. And if you don't have them, you either don't get to go into production, or if you do go into production, you're in violation of compliance and regulatory restrictions. And that's a big problem too. So I like to kind of think of it as all the benefits that you get from containerized and microservices development, but hardened and delivered in an enterprise viable way that doesn't sacrifice any of the good stuff from the kind of open source world. Do you agree?
I do. Well said.
Cool. So I guess let's just kind of put our thinking caps on, or let's look in the crystal ball and say, okay, we're going to look like, I don't know, end of this year, into next year. What do you see as kind of the most interesting macro trends, or sort of, meta trends in the industry around containerization and hybrid cloud, that you think are going to attract our attention and our, collective investment and interest over the next, I don't know, year and a half?
And the first one is, I would say, is that operational optimization, like any S curve or technology adoption curve. In the early stages, people are willing to put whatever duct tape and baling wire is necessary to make things work. But at a certain stage, it requires operational optimization. And I think, Pete, you referenced earlier the continued good run Red Hat is having with Ansible. I mean, just the hits don't stop from Ansible, and I think that's the combination that we're seeing of and by the way, that customer I was speaking about that needed to go from less than 50 OpenShift clusters to just under 1,000. Ansible automation. So Ansible and OpenShift. So anyway, the first thing that I would say, Randy, it's maybe it's not as glitzy as I'm not talking about virtual reality goggles in the data center, nothing glitzy like that, but operational, removing operational efficiency roadblocks, operational optimization. I see that's the maturation of the Kubernetes-based application development and delivery platform is into that stage where customers say, I got to have operational optimization to survive. So that's one.
Yep. Good one.
And I would say that the second one that I see is definitely the blurring of the lines, the continued, it's not new, but the continued blurring of the lines between the traditional application developer and this data engineer, data scientist I mean, think about how many things in our daily existence are behind the scenes. There is some type of algorithm that is processing clicks or choices or preferences or anything. Our day is replete with that kind of stuff going on. So in every form of business, it's the age of standalone apps that don't have east-west connections for data pipelines. Boy, that age is over.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of those. And in fact, that your second one is one that I am always kind of interested in and bullish on, and that's the whole edge enablement and edge empowerment. So as more and more compute and interpretation and inferencing is getting pushed closer and closer to the endpoints, whether it's humans or sensors or process flows or whatever, I think it's very much along the same lines. And the first point you made too with the operational efficiency, again, vehemently agree. And that's part of the reason why, for example, over the last couple of years, we've brought in technologies like Turbonomic and Instana, because those are all about closed loop AI optimization and AI ops, eventually getting to this mythical kind of zero ops, this like fully autonomous data flow and workflow that can be optimized from the edge to the core to the data center. So we're making a lot of progress and a lot of strides there. And, I think to your point, Red Hat is very vibrant in all of these discussions, whether it's around the data science stack, the edge enablement, all that stuff. So, I mean, it's a really exciting time, I guess, if I had to boil it down. So I don't know, Pete, what are your crystal ball musings?
Well, we kind of saw this morning, Randy, when we were talking about me submitting my expense report and how there's AI behind the scenes, and I don't even need an approval from my manager anymore to submit an expense report. It's kind of blew my mind, but
that's why he's in the Bahamas.
Yeah, you hope you don't need an approval. Yeah.
Exactly. No, it's really an exciting time, and I vehemently agree with Brent in terms of where we are as an industry. And in some ways, we're at the very beginning of this evolution. And in a lot of ways, it's actually a revolution that's happening, as we move towards these cloud native architectures. But it's very exciting because I feel like, we've built up a lot of momentum over the past few years between Red Hat and IBM, learning about, these new architectures and the business value that we can deliver. But I kind of resonate with what Brent is saying, though, that, we're just starting to see, that trajectory take off. And, people are, they've gone from pilot into production, but now they really need to scale. And that's exciting to me because that tells me, we're at a critical point in the industry right now where this technology is going to explode. And it's going to take off like wildfire. And I think the work that we're all doing, both between IBM and Red Hat, is really going to drive a lot of that innovation out there.
Yeah, and I'm finding, sorry, Pete. Yeah, I'm finding too, and I mentioned I was on a briefing with a large financial services customer prior to this call, and it was a joint. We were talking with some of our counterparts and colleagues from the research team, the cloud research team, who are doing just absolutely extraordinary things right now. And when I think about the ways that IBM and Red Hat are engaging in other brands and other parts of IBM. And how that can positively influence and inform what we're doing, it's incredibly exciting. I mean, the stuff is just, some of it is mind-boggling. I mean, I can't, it's not publicly announced yet, so I can't talk a lot about it, but I will say there are applications of AI and things like natural language processing and iterative recursive modeling and foundation models that are being applied to things like Ansible, for example. So you can use your imagination and figure out what that might mean and what that might look like. And it's happening. I saw a demo of it an hour ago and it's extraordinary. So, this is a really exciting time for a lot of the things we're working on. From my perspective as somebody in the data services and kind of container space here, along with you guys, we're foundational to all that, which is great because we kind of got a seat at the table. More importantly, from the customer's perspective, they're looking to us to help them as they are on this journey to grow from, 10 clusters to 10,000 clusters and beyond, right? So it's a really, really cool place to be. And I'm super excited. And just to go back to what we said off the top, we're incredibly stoked to have Brent and his team on board. So, Brent, parting thoughts.
Actually, yes. So, but two parting thoughts. One is to add the third leg of the stool in terms of crystal ball, and that's the continued maturation of what the practicality of hybrid cloud. So, actually, relating back to the first one, which is operational optimization. Clearly, that's one of the major motivations to push workloads to public clouds is operational optimization. But we all see, virtually every customer that we interact with has some form of. They're now much more at peace with right cloud, right workload. It's not it's that they're getting every customer I interact with is getting much better at saying, okay, this workload, this cloud, private cloud, public cloud, or multiple public clouds, regional cloud, public cloud, and whatnot. And so that as it becomes just they're getting better and good at knowing which cloud where to deploy. So the cost of refactoring now becomes material, is because they inherently because they inherently and freely choose right cloud, right application, or right workload. Without a common underlying application development platform, refactoring costs real money. Anyway, so parting comment is from what I've seen in 31 days so far, Randy, our goal in bringing this together was to unlock capped value in these technologies that were capped at Red Hat, because our mission was different. The mission of Red Hat Storage was different, and so from what I've seen so far, it's been a let's work together to unlock that cap value. Instead of some of these types of things can be like you stimulate all kinds of antibodies that attack. Not seeing a lot of that here, which has been nice.
Yeah, minimal immune response, which is great.
Yeah.
So, Pete?
Brent, it's always great to talk with you, and you're visionary, where things are headed, and what you're seeing. More importantly, I think with the customers that you work with, feet on the street kind of thing. So this has been incredibly insightful. Probably one of the best FusionCasts, I think, Randy, that we've done.
Gonna have to agree. Yeah,
we covered a lot of ground here.
We did. So, Brent, thanks. We appreciate your time. We know you're a busy guy. You're very much in demand these days. We appreciate it. Pete, thanks as always. Enjoy your remaining time in paradise before you have to go back to reality. And that's going to wrap it up for this time. So thanks for watching, and we will be back in the next episode. As always, if you have any ideas for future episodes, let us know, and we will make sure to get them in the production schedule. So thanks. Good luck. Good selling.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.